Going live. We are.
You're a hedgehog, and you have supersonic powers.
Ball up right now and roll!
Action! Come on, honey, and you're brave, and you're scared. Hey, focus! I want you to think about the marketing opportunities here. Okay, in front of the paper.
What part of supersonic speed do you not understand?
The right hedgehog is hard to find. New Sonic Adventure 2 Battle with extra two-player action. Only on Nintendo GameCube. Rated E for everyone.
All right, I'm sorry I yelled at you.
I think that might have been the first time I actually saw a real hedgehog. Anyway, good evening, folks. Hope you all had a good work week, and I am excited because we are playing Sonic Adventure 2 tonight. And joining me, as always, for these Sonic videos, it seems, is Steffi, the MLG Panda. You still with me, Steffi?
I am here. Hello, everyone.
And are you as totally stoked about this as I am, Steffi?
I am. This game took so many hours of my childhood, and I had so much nostalgia for it.
Yeah, I feel like that's what a lot of people are saying these days. Like, whenever I talk to people, like even those who aren't the biggest fans of Sonic the Hedgehog, most of them seem to have at least played Sonic Adventure 2. And that's primarily because this is sort of a great big landmark for the series in general. So, this game was released in 2001, and initially it was released exclusively for the Dreamcast. And we talked about this a little bit during the Sonic Adventure stream. So, the first Sonic Adventure was a huge hit. It was the best-selling Dreamcast game ever, and that ensured a good first year for the Dreamcast when it first came out, because you had a system seller with Sonic Adventure, you had stellar hardware, and there was lots of great software coming out for the thing. You had Crazy Taxi, Soul Calibur, all kinds of great fighting games by Capcom. Like, it seemed like every mistake that Sega made with the Sega Saturn, they course corrected with the Dreamcast. But after that first year, it became very clear that course correction, it was like they swerved to avoid hitting a tree only to careen off a cliff. Because the following year, Shenmue became the talk of the town, and like the quality of Shenmue is debatable, and we're not going to go into that right here, but at the time, that was the most expensive video game ever created. And when it came out, while it did do well, it just could not recoup the amount of money that Sega had spent on it. So that financially crippled them. And not helping matters was the fact that software sales were starting to dip, because people were starting to realize how easy it was to pirate games for the Dreamcast. All you needed was a CD burner. And then Sony announced the PlayStation 2. Nintendo announced the GameCube, and Microsoft announced the Xbox, and at that point, Sega just knew that they couldn't keep up anymore. They were hoping that when Sonic Adventure 2 came out, that would boost the sales of the Dreamcast, but they eventually realized that was just going to be wishful thinking and decided to call it quits on hardware altogether. So, Sonic Adventure 2 would end up being a swan song for the Dreamcast, as well as, Sega as a hardware manufacturer. It was the end of their time as a video game giant. But after that, they restructured to be a third-party developer, and one of the first things they did was port Sonic Adventure 2 to the GameCube with Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. And I don't know about you, Steffi, but Sonic Adventure 2 was the game that made me want a GameCube in the first place. As soon as I saw that commercial we just saw, I was begging my mom to get me one just because I wanted to play Sonic Adventure 2. And every time we went to Walmart or Target or Toys R Us, I would always drag her to the electronics section just because I wanted to play the Sonic Adventure 2 demo. And when we finally got a GameCube for Christmas of 2002, I think it was, while I didn't get Sonic Adventure 2 for Christmas that year, that Christmas money I got that year was immediately spent on a copy of the game, and I played the hell out of that. I actually meant to grab my copy of it, because I still have it, but I don't think it really works anymore, but I won't get rid of it for sentimental value. What about you, Steffi? Is that your experience with it too?
I can't quite remember if I already had a GameCube or not when Sonic Adventure 2 Battle came out, but I do remember playing the demo over and over every time we went to Walmart. And it was the game that kind of got me into Sonic because I had never heard of it before, and I was like, yo, this game looks really cool. This is really fun. And I don't really remember when I got the game, but I know when I did, I never stopped playing it.
Yeah, like that. Like I said, the copy I have, like, I thought about playing it tonight, but I wasn't sure if I could get it to work and if I could squeeze more life out of it. I kind of didn't want to. I just kind of want to retire that copy of the game. But yeah, we have a lot of experience with this game, so we obviously have some nostalgia bias for it. And like Sonic Adventure, there's a lot of debate these days as to whether or not Sonic Adventure 2 still holds up. And we are going to talk about it, both the good and the bad tonight. But I feel like we're just kind of rambling right now, Steffi. Or at least I am. I feel like I talked more there. So why don't we go ahead and get started with the game? What do you say?
Yeah, let's get to the game.
All right, so how we're going to be playing this game. So if you recall our Sonic Adventure stream, we had an issue with sound. Like, for me and Steffi, Sonic Adventure was really loud, and we could barely hear each other. But then when we played it back in the stream, you could hear us clear as day, yet somehow the in-game audio was really silent. So instead of playing the game on PC, I got it on my Xbox Series X, so I could better isolate the sound channel and control it. And I think we got it really good tonight here, Steffi. So let's see if we got it, okay?
Here's hoping.
Here's hoping. And also, Steffi is having some technical difficulties with Discord, so if she cuts out, we apologize for that. We'll look into that issue too. It's something that came up right before we started streaming, so here's hoping it doesn't become a recurring problem.
Yeah, it's like my computer just randomly decided to hate Discord.
All right, let's go ahead.
Let's do it.
It just doesn't feel right playing this on an Xbox. I'm used to having the GameCube logo pop up.
Yeah, I've never played this on any platform other than the GameCube, and my copy still works.
Lucky you. Okay, looks like the sound's coming in good.
Good.
Okay, and real talk right here, Steffi. This right here, this is my favorite title screen of all time. It is just perfect. The graphic design, the imagery in the background, the music. Oh, the music! Oh, I love it! Oh, I haven't even pushed start yet and I'm already getting excited.
It's so good. I used to just boot up this game and leave the start screen on forever.
And then we got this opening, like, it uses tension much in the same way the original Sonic Adventure did, but in a different way. As you got the roll call, you got Sonic and Shadow just charging at each other. It just keeps building and building and building with this awesome imagery. You just know these two are going to scrap. And then the chorus starts. Live Blood! Yes! Yes! I love it. God, it gives me goosebumps every time. I love it. Okay, I've been playing this game for 10 hours, so we're gonna go ahead and start a new file. Okay, so before we go any further, I guess we should discuss some of the differences between the Dreamcast version and the Adventure 2 Battle version. And unlike Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure DX, there aren't as many changes. In regards to graphics, it mostly just boils down to some slight graphical differences and the removal of some Easter eggs from the Dreamcast version. But the main thing that they added for Battle was the multiplayer. In the Dreamcast version, the multiplayer was pretty bare bones. It was there, but there wasn't a whole lot to it, not a lot of content. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, it adds more playable characters. Just about every level in the main game is represented as a level for multiplayer. And it's just such a great time. I played it with my little brother last night, and I can tell you, it's just as fun now as it was back then. Do you have any memories playing the multiplayer, Steffi?
I do. I remember I always picked Amy, and Amy was very broken. I remember the treasure hunt battles were my favorite.
Yeah. Funny you should mention Amy. I actually switched to Amy last night just to troll Jared a little bit, and he got real pissed off with me.
Yeah, so as long as you don't pick Amy, it's a fun, fair, good time.
Yeah, it's a great time.
I remember really liking that you could play as T-Call, too. She was, like, my favorite character when I was younger. So
like, all the
nice he was represented.
All the extra characters in there are great. But here's one of our first major differences compared to Sonic Adventure. So in Sonic Adventure, you had the 6 playable characters, each with their own storylines. And in Sonic Adventure 2, you still have 6 characters, but this time they're grouped into 2 teams with 2 stories. So you have the hero side of things and the dark side of things. So let's hear from you first, Steffi. Do you think this was a good or bad change?
It was a good change. I mean, it makes a lot of sense the way that the story works.
Yeah, I think it was a good choice too, because like we talked about this when we looked at Sonic Adventure, how some of the story beats in Sonic Adventure could be a little redundant because you could be seeing them up to 2 or 3 times. With the setup they have here, that happens far less frequently, and like because the stories only intersect when the 2 teams meet, you're seeing an original story from either side of the conflict. So I think it was a good call.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with the hero side story. And like because the stories only intersect when the 2 teams meet, you're seeing... Yeah. Sorry, I was just trying to make sure I could hear the music.
This scene right here is so iconic.
Oh yeah, this is one of my favorite interstage left moments ever. It's like, what have you gotten yourself into this time, Sonic?
It is interesting how in the adventure series overall, like, Sonic is so involved with humans.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the deal there was, but they tried to bring that back in that game we don't talk about, Shadow the Hedgehog, and Sonic Unleashed. But after a while, they just kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
And now we got one of the best levels in the series in general, City Escape. Now I've got a lot to say about this level. First of all, it just opens with an amazing set piece, like Sonic snowboarding down the streets of San Francisco. Like, that's just such a strange image. Then you get to control Sonic, and you realize that they further refine the control to perfection here. Homing attack, the jump, the weight, it just feels great. You get to play with some new moves, the grinding, and just the beats of this. What'd you say, Steffi?
The soap shoes?
Oh yeah, so you might have noticed that Sonic is wearing a different set of sneakers here. And believe it or not, the shoes he's wearing actually did exist at the time. Soap was a shoe company that their signature shoe had plastic plates in the heel or the arch, and you could use that to grind. It was for parkour purposes. It's just a clever bit of cross promotion. And the grinding in this game is actually really interesting too. And I didn't think about it until I watched a little bit of Nitro Rad. In this game, it's not as simple as just hopping on the rail. There is some balance involved. If you hold the B button, Sonic will crouch and that'll make you speed up, but if you hit a curve while you're crouched, he'll lose his balance and slow down, which is something that's been lost in later Sonic games, and really any game that has grinding in it. In most cases, grinding is just, you know, something that automates the game for a bit. What do you think, Steffi? Do you prefer the grinding from this game or how it is now?
The grinding from this game, because you feel like you have control still. In later games in the series, whenever Sonic is grinding, it's just kind of like a cutscene, and you don't have control.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the grinding in Tony Hawk, where you have to balance yourself. There's still some skill involved.
Yes. I do think that in a future game, they do take it a little bit too far, where the levels are a bit grind heavy and it relies too much on player skill.
Yeah.
But we'll discuss that when we get to it.
Yeah. And what we have here is another great example of level design. This is just a memorable climax right here.
Oh, yes.
Like, Gun must have adopted a I will kill as many people as it takes as long as you're one of them mentality when dealing with Sonic, because that was absolutely insane. They even killed Bit the Cat back there if you saw that.
I wonder how much money they wasted trying to capture Sonic.
Kids, don't use giant semi-trucks to chase hedgehogs. Let me check the sound real quick, Steffi.
Sure.
I will kill as many people as it takes as long as you're one of them mentality when dealing with Sonic, because that was absolutely insane. They even killed Bit the Cat back there if you saw that. Sounds like it's coming through. Voice is a little loud though.
Your voice is always a little loud.
I apologize. Okay, Steffi, before I go any further with this boss fight, so, should I give this guy a sporting chance, or should I just curb stomp him?
Curb stomp him! How dare he go up against Sonic the Hedgehog?
As you wish.
It is ridiculously silly that, like, the whole, I assume, United States military is just going all out to capture this blue hedgehog.
Well, hey, let's be real. Sonic is one of the most powerful beings in his world, so of course they would. And of course, what Sonic Adventure 2 is most famous for, the introduction of Shadow.
Well, yes.
This takes me back when Shadow was just so freaking cool.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Like, I just love this interaction here. He's showing off for Sonic. He clearly wasn't expecting Sonic to talk back to him. He's just looking at him, trying to figure out, what is this guy doing? He does know who I am, doesn't he?
Let me show off my moves here.
Now that's a Dragon Ball Z moment right there. And this is probably a good time to mention in regards to the story of the game. So once again, I feel like the story of Sonic Adventure 2 is actually really good, but it does have some weaknesses. For example, the introduction of Knuckles here, I feel like this could have been written better. And in addition to that, while it is nice that they have actual cutscenes now instead of, you know, the game being told in-game like it was in Sonic Adventure 2, the sound mixing here is just terrible. The music is too loud, characters talk over each other, and the voice acting is once again hit or miss, so it's like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. What do you think, Steffi?
My Discord cut out, so I missed the question. I'm sorry.
So, I said, with how the story is told in Sonic Adventure, the story is good, it's very well written, very memorable, but they've still got some issues with the storytelling. They do have actual cutscenes now and all that, but the sound mixing is just awful. I feel like it's 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I mean, I'm glad that we can actually hear the characters talk for the most part, unlike when we played Sonic Adventure and it was like na 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 over their voices the whole time.
I feel like the game still has that issue, but like the storytelling could still use some work here. They clearly screwed up with the sound mixing.
Yeah, I mean, that's just part of the age, I think.
Yeah, it was the style of the time. So we get to Knuckles' first stage, and Knuckles' stages are basically the same as they were in Sonic Adventure. They're at the treasure hunting, but I would call these a significant improvement. For starters, the levels are actually designed for this type of gameplay, whereas in Sonic Adventure, they were just repurposed from snippets of Sonic's levels. And Knuckles' control in general is a lot tighter. What do you think, Steph? Are these better or worse than they were in Sonic Adventure?
I do think they're much better, definitely in regards to being able to control Knuckles better and just the level design in general. One thing that I wish they would have kept, though, is that if you're... So, these levels focus on one Emerald Shard at a time. So even if you're close to one of the other ones, it won't go off unless you're actively tracking that one. But in the first game, like,
it would track all of them at once.
Yeah, it would track all of them at once. So when I was a kid and I played this game over and over and over, like, I learned pretty much all the possible spots where the emeralds could be hidden, and I ended up going and checking all those spots first, and not even trying to follow the tracker.
Yeah, and that's sort of the benefit for veterans like us. Like, these levels would have been a real pain in the ass for first-timers, but we played this game so many times, we can basically tell you where the emeralds will most likely be and immediately go check those areas. And the levels are sort of designed with that in mind, too, so...
It is kind of cool, too, because there's little information thingies that you can go to that'll give you hints about where the emerald shards are.
But if you take a hint, you also take a hit on your score, and you'll get lower than, like, the A I got there.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's an interesting question. Who is Tails talking to here?
I always assumed he was, like, talking to himself or taking, like, a log that he was recording.
Well, you know what they say, geniuses often talk to themselves as part of their thinking process, and Tails is a genius.
Yeah. I mean, Tails seems like the kind of guy that would talk to himself a lot.
What's Amy doing here? Doesn't matter. I have to help Amy because she's in danger. Tornado transformation!
So, one of the things fans like to complain about with this game in particular is they don't like that Tails is confined to a mech for the entirety of the game. What do you think about that, Steffi?
I remember I didn't really care for it when I was a kid. Like, I really wished that I could just play as Tails and fly around separately and whack people with my tails, but, like, I mean, I don't really see an issue with it now, because it works.
And it's also just part of Tails' character. He is the kind of character who would make use of machines, and I kind of like that they did that, because it sets his skill set apart from Sonic.
Yeah.
He's sort of becoming his own character here, which is nice.
Yeah, and when you do the Chow Garden mini game, you get to play as Tails and Eggman outside of their mechs too. So
Wow,
it's
Tails,
not like they're
you just
completely confined the entire game.
Ah, my ears! Not this song again.
don't you know it's dangerous here?
Yeah, it's interesting how many songs they brought back from Sonic Adventure.
Hurry! I know Eggman's up to no good again. Okay, you stay here. I'll be right back.
Step. Ah, 1 second. My headphones are acting up.
Did you lose me?
Yeah, I lost you there for a second.
I was just commenting on the fact that it's silly how many songs they brought back from the first Sonic Adventure.
Well, to be fair, most of them are redone from Sonic Adventure, but the only one that didn't get changed was Amy's song, and she has the worst one if you ask me.
Rouge's is pretty bad too.
1 second. There we go. I accidentally
Sounds like
turned
we're both
awareness.
having some technical difficulties.
Yeah. Okay, so Tails' stages are basically like Gammas from Sonic Adventure 2, lock-on shooting. And I know a lot of people who absolutely hate these levels, but to be honest, I never thought these were that bad. Don't get me wrong, I would much rather be playing as Sonic right now, or would have preferred Tails play like Sonic, but I don't really mind these so much for one simple reason. These sections are polished, controls are great, it's fun to shoot stuff. I mean, and it's pretty fast-paced too, in a different way, but I would say these work. What do you think about these sections, Steph?
These are some of my favorite sections of the game. I love these levels. I do wish that like the platforming was a little bit smoother, because there are some sections of these levels where you have to jump on platforms and it's just tough to jump because Tails is so bulky.
Honestly, I love the platforming sections in these levels, but then again, like, you always told me you have a little trouble with platforming sometimes, Steffi.
I do. I'm not the best with platforming.
So that might just that be I don't know how to put it without sounding arrogant. But you get what I'm saying, right, Steffi?
Yeah, when I said that, I did have a specific level in mind. I don't think we're gonna get to it tonight, but it's
What level
one,
is that?
It's the one where you're in the desert fortress.
Is that Hidden Base or what is it? The one where you play as Tails or Eggman? Hidden Base or Sand Ocean?
You know, I really can't remember. It might be Eggman, but
We might actually get to that level if it's the Eggman one.
okay. But there is like a portion where, like, I feel like you should be able to go right through, but because of the sand platforms, you just can't. Like, there's no way to rush it because they just don't jump fast enough, and it always bugged me when I was a kid.
Yeah, I can imagine. I had trouble with those sections when I was a youngin' too.
And then there's
And also-
like more rising platforms where it's really easy to just fall off the platform too.
And also, I know we've said before already, but how good is this friggin' music, dude?
The soundtrack for this game is amazing.
This is my favorite soundtrack in any video game, period. Not just by the Sonic series, but just in general. Like, this is a soundtrack I can bang my head to. It probably had a huge influence on my personal taste in music in general.
I did it!
And of course, Tails has to celebrate by making his machine hop up and down.
It's so cute.
It's almost like it, but as a kid, me and my brothers used to joke that, like, the robot was actually Tails' legs.
I mean, might as well be.
See, in the Dreamcast version, there was actually a lighting effect cast by the bars and everything, which they removed for the battle version.
Amy Rose is here.
How'd you get here?
And what's a little weird here is that even though you have these cartoony character models,
Ride with tails.
for whatever reason, they use motion capture for them.
My help? It looks like
Really?
you could use it.
Yeah, which, like, look at Sonic's movements here.
Because of that fake hedgehog.
Those look like something a human would do.
Yeah.
And I also love that Sonic is doing that. I feel like he's trying to show off for Amy.
Way.
I thought I had you this time.
What do you think, Steffi? Does Sonic actually have feelings for Amy, or does he just view her as a nuisance?
Here with Dr. Eggman.
I don't even know at this point.
Eggman's behind this, huh?
What's all that
It depends on the continuity, I would say. In the IDW comics, for sure, Sonic has a thing for Amy. He's just not willing to admit it yet. But right here, he probably just finds her a nuisance because Sonic Adventure 2 is probably Amy's worst showing. She is so annoying in this game.
Oh, here's another really cool level.
Oh yeah, Metal Harbor. Ah, missed it. It's gonna grind on that rail. And like the movement of this level just feels wholly unique compared to City Escape. Like in City Escape, there's a lot of downhill motion as you're making your way down the San Francisco hills and everything. But here, it's more like a game of hopscotch. You're just bouncing across all these platforms in the water. And like the aircraft carriers, I need to get the light speed shoes. They're up here.
First power-up of the game.
Yeah, so this is something else that they've improved upon from Sonic Adventure. And Sonic Adventure, you had power-ups too, permanent power-ups that would expand Sonic's moveset. But like they were very superfluous and honestly a little clunky to use. Like the light speed shoes in Sonic Adventure, you had to let Sonic charge up his spin dash before he could use the light speed dash. But here, it's much simpler. You just walk up to a trail of rings, and they can just zip across it. And that's become another standard move for Sonic over the years too. And it just adds to the flow of the game too.
I was so happy that they got rid of that charge up thing. It was so dumb. It would take forever to charge up, and then you could find another power up that would make it faster, but it still took forever to charge up.
Yeah, and there is a power-up in every level in this game, and some are more useful than others, but I do think that is a good addition because it makes the game feel... It creates a greater sense of progression, I would say.
I agree. And it's cool too because if you go back and replay levels, there's new areas you're able to get to with access from the power-ups.
And we got another epic climax here. Sonic hitching a ride on what looks like an ICBM missile, and I really hope that's not headed for anything, because that looks like a friggin' nuke to me.
I always love trying to get to the very top before time ran out to ride the top of the missile.
And you need to do that if you want a perfect score on this level. Otherwise, the best you can get is a C, I think. Let's see what I got.
It's very tricky. I'm not sure if you can do it with the resources you have right now.
I've never been able to pull it off, and I'm not even going to try. Ah!
Ouch.
Screw you, game. I would flip you off if I didn't want to do that on screen. Give me the bird. We'd love to, really, but the Fox sensors won't allow it.
So far, so good. Hey, that's...
That blue hedgehog again, of all places.
I found you. Faker.
Faker, I think you...
And this is really what sets Shadow apart from Sonic's other counterparts in the past, because we've had people who are on Sonic's level face him before. We've had Knuckles and Metal Sonic, but they've always respected Sonic as an opponent. this is the first time Sonic has ever fought someone who looks down on him completely.
The impression that Metal Sonic looked down on him completely.
Nah, Metal Sonic, his whole purpose in life was to kill Sonic. So, by virtue of that, he was taking Sonic seriously.
I guess that's fair.
Shadow initially thinks that Sonic is just a joke.
Do you know who I am?
And, like, again, this was back when Shadow was cool, where, like, he was so much like Sonic in the fact that he was confident in himself, but whereas Sonic was just confident in his ability to overcome anything, Shadow's confidence was just more from the fact that he was told all his life that he's the ultimate life form, and that's created a superiority complex. And with that comes some less rock-solid ethics, too. So, a really interesting dichotomy between him and Sonic. You get what I'm saying, Steffi?
Yes.
It's certainly different from today, where he's mostly just your atypical edgelord. You know, the anti-hero, the Vegeta, whatever.
Yeah.
Speaking
I
of which,
remember as a kid being like, "Oh, he's the evil Sonic," and like
we'll
that's
talk
what
more
he's
about
become now.
And we'll talk more about that when we get to the dark side story. After this level, we're going to switch to the dark side and play a little bit of that. But, yeah, when you first start playing the game, most likely you're going to play as Sonic first. You just kind of get the sense that Shadow is likely a clone made by Eggman. But, as we'll find, maybe that might not be the case. Now, here's an interesting talking point, Steffi. What do you think about the recent announcements of Shadow being voiced by Keanu Reeves in the upcoming movie?
I'm intrigued.
Honestly, I'm disappointed that they did that, mostly because my personal pick for Shadow would have been Will Friedle. But, like, Keanu Reeves just seems like too obvious a choice, and I feel like because of that, they're probably just going to make Shadow the edgelord. Steffi?
Yeah, like, I'm not really sure what to expect, to be honest.
And to be honest, like, I don't have much expectations for that movies. Like, you guys all know, I'm not a big fan of the Sonic movies, mostly just because of how they portray Sonic. But who knows, maybe they'll get it right this time.
Yeah, like, I don't have high hopes going into it, but like I said, I'm intrigued, I'm curious, and I'm open to it to see where they go, but I always feel like the Sonic the Hedgehog movies are just aimed too much at the younger members of the audience.
And there's nothing wrong with appealing to a younger audience, like Sonic Adventure 2. I mean, this is obviously geared towards kids, but it still respects its audience, and I feel like that's the problem with the Sonic movies. They just don't respect their audience. They just have the sense that this is for kids, and kids are dumb, so we don't have to put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah, let's do this dumb dance contest, because kids like that, right?
Which is just so freaking stupid, because the people who are going to go see your movies are the crazy people like you and me, Steffi, who have been with this series since we were children.
Yep, and I'm still gonna go and see Sonic 3 when it comes out in theaters, so...
Yeah, you and me both. It's tough to be a Sonic fan.
It sure is.
Okay, so now we're gonna switch to Dark Side Story.
Pumpkin Hill!
This place sure feels haunted. There's no time to lose. I have to hurry and find the Master Emerald.
Yeah, the music in that level is great too. Like, I love the hip-hop songs that they got for Knuckle stages.
They're so good. They did such a good job with this game's soundtrack.
Yeah, one of the best in my opinion. This was my number 1 pick for a top 10 list I did over on the blog. And this is a pretty stellar open for the dark side story too. Like this sets the tone right away.
Emergency battle formations. Standard battle procedures initiated. Locate and stop the intruder from entering the security area.
Yeah, we had Sonic breaking out of a police helicopter. Now we got Eggman breaking into some top secret looking facility.
And this is probably the most menacing Eggman has ever looked in the games, don't you think?
Yes. Like, Eggman did not screw around in this series.
Yeah, he's almost as cool as he was in Sad AM. Almost. He'll never be that cool again.
No.
Alright, so here's a bit of a... Alright, I got a quiz for you, Steffi. Quiz for Steffi. So, was this the first time you ever got to play as Eggman?
I feel like the fact that you're asking me this means no.
No, it was not. And do you know what the first game was where you got to play as Eggman?
Sonic Drift?
It was Sonic Drift. Very good, Steffi. Top of the class.
Ding, ding, ding. You also get to play Eggman in Sonic R.
Yeah, but Sonic Drift came first.
Well, yeah.
And this is another really good level too. Like, aside from the fact that it's a good introductory level for Eggman, it just gives you a really good sense of power too. Like, just blowing through these doors and everything. Like, and the fact it's a military base too, is supposed to be heavily guarded, it really conveys the amount of power that Eggman has at his fingertips here.
Oh yeah. What I always loved about these levels is trying to target as many enemies as possible before attacking. You get a huge point boost if you can do that.
Oh yeah. Like, you got this laser and you paint that over targets, and that's how the lock-on system works. What Steffi's saying, like, right here. Like, you see how I'm locking on to a bunch of targets right there? Like, you can just mash the button and you'll get the job done, but you get more points if you finesse it.
Yeah, and that's the key to getting a higher score on this level, like a higher ranking at the end.
I feel like it's much easier to do that in Eggman and Tails sections as opposed to it is in the other stages. What do you think, Steph?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's how these levels are designed. There's way more enemies in the Eggman and Tails levels. And, like, in the Sonic levels, for example, you get a higher grade by finishing the level faster, collecting more rings, and you do get extra points for defeating enemies, but these levels were designed more with defeating enemies in mind. Like, you do get a bonus for time and rings collected, but the main way to get that higher rating is by defeating as many enemies as possible and ranking up that score multiplier. Plus,
That's
it's
something else.
Really fun too to do that.
And that's something else that I just thought of. Like, this is a good example of how to do combat in a Sonic game too. Like, one of the things I hated about Sonic Frontiers was, like, the combat encounters, like just having to square up with an enemy and have a long drawn out bat with them. Here, you're just blowing away enemies by the truckload. And again, that sort of plays into what I was talking about earlier with the pace of these levels. Like, yeah, they're slower paced than Sonic and Shadow stages, but there's still a lot of momentum to them.
And more missiles.
More what?
Missiles.
Oh yeah, got lots of those.
I always loved that part of the level, having to knock all the doors down with the missile.
He's probably got the buttons listed on his control panel. Missiles, more missiles, all the missiles! Yeah, looking at this stuff as an adult, this kind of makes me think of Akira. Remember the scene in the movie where they go down into where they're storing Akira's remains?
Yes.
It's kind of like that, isn't it?
It really is. I've never made that connection before.
Akira was very influential, so it wouldn't surprise me if that's where it came from.
Makes sense.
Enter password. Password is Maria. Now all I have to do is to place.
And right there, that's a pretty big story beat too. Like, they do pepper in little details like that. They're really good with that.
Yeah, and the ending story really, like, it really ends the story on a good note. Like, I feel like they tie it all together that way.
You know, when they were making this game, they were making it under the impression that it would be the last Sonic game.
Really?
Yep. And see, like, Shadow's reveal here.
Was going down?
Yeah, they didn't know where they were going to go once production had ended. But the introduction of Shadow here, this is your first indication that there's more to Shadow than meets the eye. Because you realize that Eggman didn't create this guy. There's a much deeper story behind him. The mystery behind Shadow here was one of the most compelling part of the character. And unfortunately, they jumped the shark with it in later games, which we will get to. But man, he was just so cool back in the day.
He really was. I mean, I don't know how many of our viewers are familiar with, like, the Sonic Prime TV show, but I feel like they're trying to redeem Shadow more in that series now and making him a cool character again instead of just the edgelord.
I would still say they got some work to do on that front, but they are getting better at it.
Well, to be fair, we haven't
Oh no! Oh no!
Oh! Well...
it's
technical
okay.
difficulties, guys.
Why are you doing this to me, game?
I actually thought that was my Discord screwing up again.
It's okay, I'll just reboot the game. Sorry about that, guys. These things happen sometimes. Yeah, much like the Adventure DX version of the game, this release of the game is kind of buggy. It's not really supported that much anymore. So again, Sega, how about a proper remaster? Maybe a remake of the Adventure games instead of a sequel to Sonic Frontiers, which I have a feeling you're going to want to do because you guys are all lazy. Prove me wrong. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
And, like, they seem to like re-releasing the same games over and over, so why not re-release Sonic Adventure again?
Properly,
yes. Yeah, there has not been a good reboot of this game.
Re-release,
that's what I meant to say.
And I like how when you go back to the story after you put the game down, you hear what these characters are thinking about the situation.
And they're voice acted.
And I think they've done really well too. Like, I think the voice acting in this game is for the most part good, especially Shadow's voice actor. He does an exceptional job here.
Yes.
Sounds so natural. Alright, let's see if I can get through this without it freezing again. Should probably grab a ring first.
That might help.
Yeah, stay in one spot. You call yourself military?
Well, so far so good.
Yeah, apart from this guy absolutely sucking. Ah!
I meant the game.
Maybe I spoke too soon. Teach you to do that to me. So this was also the first game in the series to introduce Guardians of the United Nations, or GUN, which is the military organization in the world of Sonic the Hedgehog. And they were probably just included in the game because they needed a neutral party for both teams to fight. But I've always liked GUN's presence in the world of Sonic the Hedgehog because they were sort of the ultimate moral gray. While they were on the side of good and were willing to fight alongside Sonic to fight certain threats, they were also capable of going too far and causing trouble in their own rights, so they were someone that Sonic would stand against in certain situations too. I kind of miss that they're not in the series anymore. Steffi? I think we lost Steffi again. I guess I'll keep talking. Got this cutscene again, which is a little redundant. What I think would have been better here is if instead of Eggman coming to shatter the Master Emerald, if it had been Shadow that came to destroy the Master Emerald. That would have made sense because Shadow would have known that the Master Emerald had the potential to neutralize the Emeralds, which was a threat to Professor Gerald's plan. It also would have better got Knuckles into the game because it would have gave him a reason to seek out Sonic. Maybe thinking that Shadow was Sonic himself because, let's face it, Knuckles is still very gullible.
Yeah, but I get the sense that Shadow just wanted Eggman to do all the dirty work.
He probably only had Eggman help him because he was related to Professor Gerald.
Well, he also said that, like, Eggman is the one who released him, so he was gonna grant him a wish. So he's like, okay, I'll do this thing for you, but you're gonna do all the hard work for it.
Yeah. Now we're playing as Rouge, who is a character who I feel sparked 1,000 furries. What do you think about that statement, Steph?
Oh, before Rouge, it was Sally Acorn.
Yeah, unfortunately, Sally Acorn's honkers didn't jiggle.
Yeah, they made Rouge more sexy than they needed to.
Hey, you think it's bad here. When me and Jared were playing last night, we realized that there were some alternate costumes for Rouge. And one of them has her wearing a straight-up bikini top, which was really strange.
Is that in this version of the game?
Yeah, it's in this version of the game.
Interesting.
They also had some weird other costumes for the other characters too. Like you could have Sonic and Shadow wear what looks like NASCAR racing suits.
They can run NASCAR.
It would be just like that scene in Sonic X, remember, where it appears as though it was a photo finish at first, but then they look at the high speed and they realize that Sonic was moving so fast he actually ran ahead, jumped over the tape, then ran back so he could do a photo finish with Sam.
Remember that. He was such a troll.
That was one of the best moments in that entire series. Like, just Sonic Adventure 2 as well as the launch of Sonic X, to me that was just, like, the peak of Sonic's popularity. Like, it never got as big as that again.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. These were the good old days.
Yeah, caught it.
I do really like Rouge as a character, though.
Oh yeah, I feel like she's heavily underrated in the series. Like, again, she's a good representation of moral gray. While she will help out Sonic and friends when the world is in danger, at which point it serves her best interest because it wouldn't be profitable for the Earth and, you know, herself to be destroyed. But when the Earth isn't in danger, she's really just out for herself in almost every situation.
I feel like the same can be said about Shadow.
Well, Shadow at least has something of a code of honor, too. Like, he does want to, you know, fight evil and all, but whereas Sonic, he's just about keeping it in line. Shadow actively wants to destroy it.
Yeah.
So is this the level you were talking about, Steffi?
I think I was thinking about Tails' level.
Yeah, that's Hidden Base. So, and this is something else, and this probably gets into the biggest problem with Sonic Adventure, I would say. And that's really the balance of the characters here. Well, I think we both agree that none of the modes of play in Sonic Adventure 2 are bad, Steffi. There is a serious issue in regards to how much you're doing of each character. Like, what they wanted to do was make sure that every playable character got equal amount of playtime, which I personally feel was the wrong choice. The game is at its best when you're playing as Sonic and Shadow, just blazing through the levels, bouncing across enemies, and doing all that fun stuff. But you're only doing that for a third of the game. And like, I feel like the split should have been 50% for Sonic and Shadow, and then 25% for both Eggman, Tails, Rouge, and Knuckles, too. What do you think?
That would make sense. It's just... I really like all of the levels in this game, so if they were going to balance it more, they would just need to add more Sonic and Shadow levels.
I guess that's right.
I would hate for them to cut out any of Eggman, Tails, Knuckles, or Rouge's levels, because I feel like they're all really good and really memorable.
I just feel like there should have been more Sonic and Shadow here. It's like
actually, no, there is one level of Knuckles that I hate and can do without.
Which level is that? Is that Meteor Herd?
No, that one's not great either because of the glitches. But I'm talking about the one where you have to find the key.
Oh, Death Chamber?
Yes, I don't like that level.
Yeah, that can be a pain in the butt too.
So I could do without that one. Like, Sonic's level in that sequence was really cool.
Yeah, that was like high-speed Indiana Jones. That was so much fun.
Yeah.
But the reason I was talking about the balance at this point in particular, Steffi, and I promised you we'd check out the Chow Garden, so here we go.
Yay!
Is because, like, we're 3 missions into the Dark Side story yet, and we haven't had a level where you play as Shadow yet. We've had a boss fight, but that's about it.
I did notice that, but at the same time, like, Shadow's like, I'm gonna wait for you while you go and do these things.
Yeah, but you also gotta remember that in the Dark Side story, you really only have 4 levels where you play as Shadow. And you got far more where you play as Eggman in the Dark Side story. It's like, people always talk about how Shadow is the main character of the Dark Side storyline, but you barely play as him.
I guess it really is Eggman as the main character. I mean, he is the ringleader of all this.
Like, honestly, I feel like the Hero Side story is much better because you simply play as Sonic more. And, like, especially towards the end of the Dark Side story, the level design just starts to get really clunky. Like, Eggman's last level is really clunky. Rouge's last level is really finicky with the anti-gravity on the planets. And Shadow's last level is also really clunky with, you know, the cylindrical platforms and everything.
Yeah, I do remember having a lot of issues with both Sonic and Shadow's last level as a kid. Just a lot of times where I would just run too fast and fall through the floor, or enemies would, like, hit me and kill me, and, like, it was impossible for me to pick up rings to defend myself, and there's just not a lot of polish. It was also really easy to fall off the rails at some points.
Oh yeah. It also didn't help that in Sonic's final stage, Final Rush, like, that stage was almost nothing but rails.
Yeah.
There were more rails than there was solid ground.
And that's one of those things that I was kind of referencing earlier, where I said, in later Sonic games they would rely too much on the rails, and it's frustrating because the rails are harder to navigate than the platforming, and you have to be precise, and it's so easy to miss them, and if you miss them, well, oops, you fell off the stage, try again.
Yeah, it can certainly be frustrating.
Yeah.
It seems like after this, just about every Sonic game had at least one level that was entirely built around rails. That sort of became a level theme in its own right.
I feel like Sonic Heroes, the game, was built around rails.
We'll get to that, Steffi. We will definitely get to that. I actually really love Sonic Heroes. I think that's a great game, too.
I do too, but it does definitely have its hang-ups. I do gotta say that I definitely remember more of the hero side levels and story than the dark side, and I guess that's because I played the hero levels more, but they're just, I guess they're more fun.
You get to play as Eggman without his walker. Look at him go! Yeah, say what you will about Eggman, but he's actually pretty athletic, isn't he?
I used to do that just over and over and over.
Alright, so this is the feature that I'm sure a lot of people sunk a lot of time into, which is the Chow Garden. So you got these cute little eggs right here, and if you crack them open, you'll get a little baby Chow that you can raise by giving it animals to play with in these little capsules. And as you raise it, like, a lot of stuff can happen. You can increase their abilities, you can turn them into a hero or a dark Chow. If you put enough time into them, you can turn them into a chaos Chow, which is really cool. And back in the day, you could actually put them in this machine right here, and for the Dreamcast, you could upload them into your VMU, and you could take the memory card with you, because it was like a little Game Boy or LCD thing, so you'd always have your Chow on the go. And then with Sonic Advance, you could connect the Game Boy to it and put the Chow in Sonic Advance. So it was a neat little feature, and it sure did get a lot of mileage out of the game. I know it certainly did for you, didn't it, Steffi?
Yes, like, I feel like I spent so much time living in this Chow Garden as a kid. Like, I bought extra memory cards for my GameCube just so I could have more Chow Garden slots. And
did you ever, Yeah, keep going. I was interrupting you.
No, you're good. I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry. Did you ever raise it up to a Chaos Chow?
I tried so hard to, but I could not.
Yeah, I actually did witness my brother do that. They'll, like, turn into an egg, and then they'll turn into this real elaborate Chow. It was definitely something. But anyway, let's get back on with the game. I don't like breaking open the eggs. Makes me feel bad.
Well, you
Plus,
can just rock them, and then they'll hatch on their own.
I also don't want to expose the Chow to Eggman.
That's fair. What is cool is once you get a hero Chow, you get like the hero Chow garden that you have to climb upstairs to get to. And when you get
Heaven
a
and
devil
hell.
Chow, you gotta climb downstairs. And the gardens are really cool.
Hey man, don't scratch your butt.
Mysteriously, the only thing that was stolen was the Chaos Emerald.
This is something else that fans like to complain about. The fact that everyone mistakes Shadow for Sonic, which I've always thought was really stupid to complain about, because it wouldn't take much for Sonic to look like Shadow. And as far as the world is concerned, Shadow doesn't really exist. I mean, people always say, well, shouldn't Gunn know who he is? Well, the events of the Space Colony arc were probably, like, classified information. I doubt there's very many people left alive in Gunn who are aware of who Shadow is, apart from the commander. So, it makes sense to me that people would mistake Shadow for Sonic, especially if he's in constant motion. What do you think, Steph?
I mean, Sonic is the only, like, super-powered hedgehog that people know of, so if there's another super-powered hedgehog, they'll be like, oh, it's Sonic.
And this has become a meme too. People saying that they can't wait for Sonic 3 to see a child get murdered. Which, you know they are not going to adapt that into the movie.
No.
They are going
Especially
to
not
wuss
what the
out.
audience is aiming for.
They are going to wuss out even more than Sonic X did. Alright, so playing as Shadow, who, as you would expect, is basically the same as Sonic in regards to his stages. And he controls basically the same, though I've always disliked playing as Shadow because even though he's moving at the same speed, he always felt slower to me, and that's primarily because of the animation. Because he skates instead of runs, it looks like he's putting in considerably less effort than Sonic does. And you just kind of get the sense he's not moving as fast as a result. What do you think, Steffi? Is that just me, or does that sound crazy?
I always felt like he moved slightly slower than Sonic, and it bugged me.
Like, just the simple fact that Shadow needs to put effort in order to keep up with Sonic, even though he's got the rocket skates, always said to me that he was never able to move as fast as Sonic.
Oh yeah. I mean, he relies on chaos control for most of his speed. Like, I remember there was always a big debate, like, who is faster, Sonic or Shadow, or are they the same speed? And, like, I feel like Sonic is faster. Like, Shadow just has, like, assists that help him.
Well, I actually have the answer to that question too, Steffi, in several different comics and other series. Even ones where Shadow runs instead of skates because that's easier to draw in the comics. Shadow admits that he's not as fast as Sonic. And if Shadow is admitting that someone is faster than him, then you know that has to be the truth.
Just as I suspected.
Because, let's face it, that's not something Shadow would typically admit to.
Yeah.
But one question that I always get from people who have never seen the series before, how is it when you're creating an alternate life form, how is it you basically get a clone of Sonic? Well, there's actually a great fan theory about that. Like, Shadow's creation, he was supposed to be the ultimate life form, but he was also created for the purposes of defeating a greater evil that would appear in Shadow the Hedgehog. And because of that, it's commonly believed that Professor Gerald based Shadow's design off of murals that depicted Sonic as Supersonic fighting Dr. Eggman. So that was, in Professor Gerald, his mind, the ultimate life form. So, in a weird sense, he sort of coincidentally made a clone of Sonic. And that's sort of why he and Sonic have such a great dichotomy, because like, Shadow was made with the knowledge that he is the ultimate life form, whereas Sonic just came from nothing, yet he is on Shadow's level 100%.
Am I allowed to talk about the prototype ultimate life form, or is that too much spoiler?
We might as well just leave that for them to discover, because we're about to call the stream right here.
Alright.
They can play the game for themselves, but that is an important part of the lore, Steffi.
Like, how did they get Shadow the Hedgehog from that? Like, that's a question that's never been answered, I think.
Well, that was his first attempt, and it was a disaster. That's part of why Gunn turned on Professor Jail, because he created that thing, and he kept it a secret.
Yeah.
Then he was building an even greater weapon, the Eclipse Cannon. So they kind of just got the sense that he was off his rocker. That is kind of the thing about Sonic Adventure 2. There are some plot holes in the story in regards to the game itself. But over the years, with secondary stories and adaptations of it, a lot of those plot holes have been filled in, so fans typically know the full story, which, again, that's why I feel this game is due for a remake, because like you could build on that, fill in those holes, and make it better for a modern audience.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, you can go even darker, and darker in a good way, not, you know, Sonic Adventure 2 dark, Soundset AM dark, not Shadow the Hedgehog dark.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I really wish, too, that Sega would experiment with bringing back the Chow Garden, because, like...
Oh, hell yes.
Don't you think that would work great as a mobile game?
Oh, hell yeah. That would be fantastic.
They would make so much money from that.
Knowing them, they probably do a lot of microtransactions with that, though.
Well, yeah, because it's a mobile game, but...
I guess I'm going to have to find that key first.
So that's where we're going to go ahead and... What?
Sorry. I was just saying, I just wish they'd do something with it.
I'm sure a lot of people would, Steffi. You see that all the time on YouTube. I think there was a video in my YouTube recommendations when we were watching Chow in Space that was talking about that.
Yeah, because they just never brought back the Chow Garden after these games.
Yeah, it's a darn shame. But anyway, we're a little over time here, Steffi, so we need to go ahead and call it. So, what do you think of Sonic Adventure 2? Does it still hold up? Is it better than Sonic Adventure, or is this one better left forgotten?
It is definitely better than Sonic Adventure. The playability is better. It's much more polished. The story is better. The way that they kept it all, like the hero story and the dark story, is better than the individual stories. I do agree with you on the point that like the storytelling could be better, the sound design could be better. Well, I guess the balancing. Yeah.
Apart from the kick-ass soundtrack, because that is flawless.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I would love to see this game get a proper remake or re-release. Just to make it relevant again, because this is such an amazing entry in the series. Hell, they could bundle Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 together and just, like, fix them up a bit, make them more relevant. And I think that would be
pretty, adjust some issues fans had with them.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm basically in agreement, Steffi. Sonic Adventure 2, to me, is one of the best games in the series. It addresses just about every issue Sonic Adventure 2 had. It trims a lot of the fat. It tells a story better. Like, just the fact that they removed the hub worlds in favor of just a level-to-level story, I think is a major improvement. And that's something we didn't even touch on while we were doing this. The individual gameplay is a lot more polished. The Chow Garden, great feature. The emblems, all the extra emblem missions you have, there's a lot more replayability too, with the multiplayer, the music, the graphics. It's just one of Sonic's finest. It's one of my all-time favorite games, and I'm sure I'll be playing it again sometime in the future. So, yeah, really good one. So, I think that's where we're going to call it, Steffi. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the stream.
No problem. And we are on for Mario Kart 64 next weekend, right?
Yes, bring it on. You're going down this time.
Yeah, same rules as the last time we played. If you manage to win the bulk of the points, you get to choose what's next for the stream. Though I'm going to tell you guys right now, that game is going to be Jedi Survivor, because I'm going to win.
See about that. I am still deciding what game I want to make Blade play.
Well, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's stream. If you enjoyed tonight's content, please like and subscribe. I do these videos every week around 8 o'clock on Saturday. Basically what I do is I pick a game, I play them for an hour or so. Sometimes we go over time like we did tonight if we're having, a good deal of fun. And I basically just talk about the design, history, and all that good stuff. I do not play games from start to finish because I feel like if you do that, you're missing something because you aren't playing the game yourself, which is something that I feel I approved a couple of times doing this stream with certain videos. So if you want to see more, please look through the backlog. You might find something interesting. But anyway, you guys have a good night, and I'll see you next time.
Good night.
Well, that was fun, huh?
It was. I think that went well. Discord crashed 3 times, but we kept it together.
I feel like we played that off pretty well, though.
Yes. That was